Welcome to the Joy of Leadership podcast on KMozart, brought to you by Cobblestone Wine. I'm your host, Shar McBee. In a moment, you will hear from our guest, David Corvo, Senior Executive Producer of Dateline NBC. He has supervised hundreds of people in his career and has some excellent advice to anyone new to leadership. First, today's leadership secret. To lead is to serve. Your job as the leader is not to make people do what you say. Your job is to make it possible for them to succeed. Our guest is David Corvo, executive producer of primetime news at NBC. He's responsible for one of the most popular shows on television, Dateline NBC. He says a big challenge to someone who's new in leadership is to let people do what they're good at and at the same time get the job done.
I think it's one of the hardest things to learn if you're used to doing everything yourself and if you think you're good at it. So if I'm a writer and then I become the boss, so to speak, I think maybe I'm a better writer than the folks that replace me, or I think I am. But I can't just do that job my way. I can't just edit all their copy so it sounds like me. I have to give them the room to write their own copy, and I have to, and I have to give them guidance. And I can't let something that I think is poor, be published. But I'll learn from them if they're talented. If I was to write every single word that's on a program, maybe it would be okay, but it would be just all that I know. But when you give the assignment to someone else, hopefully they're going to have the guidance from you, an example from you, but they're also going to draw on their own skill set, and they're going to surprise you, and they're going to do it ways that are different and better than you've done it. And if they're not good at it, that's another question. If they can't rise to the job, okay, you have to figure that out. That's a different situation. Most people can accomplish what you ask them to.
That's an interesting point. What did you do or do you do when someone that isn't the right fit for them, or it's not the right job for them?
Well, there are a lot of things. Over the years, as I say, I think 98% of the people that I've worked with or hired have worked out fine. There are some people that don't, and there are sort of two categories. I mean, there are people who have a lot of have talent and just need some more direction than they're, in the job. Maybe you're not explaining it correctly to them, or you're not giving them the right expectations. So you have to work on that first. The first thing is, I always say, am I giving that person the tools, the guidance, and am I articulating the mission and so forth so they can accomplish it? They may not be, because it's my fault. So that's the first thing that I look at. The second thing is, okay, I think I'm doing those things. Everyone else is with the program. How come this particular person can't get it? Well, first of all, maybe we work on their skills in that job. If it still doesn't work, then we say, well, you know what? This is then we assess the person, really talented person. We've got a square peg in a round circle, or that sort of thing. What else can they do in our operation that contributes to the final product? And if you get to the point where they just are not the right person, or they just are, you're asking them to do things that way beyond the skill set, then you have to deal with that. That is the rarest situation. There are also people they have nothing to do with their skills who don't fit in. Maybe culturally they don't fit in. Their temperament is wrong. That sort of thing. That's a different issue. That may be a result because you hired the wrong person. So, you were wrong on the personnel end. But those situations do not come up very often. People tend to self-select. If they find themselves, you get into a business because you enjoy it, or you try it, and then maybe say it doesn't work out. So if you know it's not working out, almost before the people you're working for do, and you probably go find something else to do on your own. or ask for a reassignment within the company you're at. People are not stupid, most of them, they understand both intellectually and emotionally if they're in the wrong spot.
This is such a perfect example of to lead is to serve, is to make it possible for others to succeed. I love hearing this, David.
And companies have changed. I mean, when I first worked in the business, it was really sink or swim. It was tough business. Newsrooms were tough to work in. Where I work now at NBC, the opposite is true. I mean, it's an embracing organization, and it wants people, it wants a diverse group of people who are happy working with each other, who support each other, who feel respected, no matter where they come from or how they got into the business. And they expect leadership to have that cultural mandate also. And that makes it a contemporary company very exciting to be part of.
So I've watched you over the years climb up the corporate ladder, as they say. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be of service, wants to be a good leader, and also wants to be successful in their field?
I think that the first thing you have to do is whatever assignment you have to accomplish it very well and sort of be above average in that job. You can't just be a 9-to-5 player if you're really serious. Second thing is you should volunteer. These are practical things. You should volunteer for other assignments while you're doing your own. Hey, it's election night. I'm not, my unit's not covering it. I'm happy to run the coffee around to people if you need another pair of hands. I'm happy to do something bigger, whatever. So people know, you're there to contribute as much as you can. That demonstrates to people that your commitment and your enthusiasm and your willingness to really sacrifice your time and energy in order to help everybody else. Then you stand out. And then I think it's important to learn the landscape of your business. In other words, you come in and you maybe know a part of it, but then you see how many jobs there are, how much things you didn't even know existed. And it's important to try to, wow, I didn't even know that job existed, but it's kind of right for me. It sounds exciting. I want to try that. And that may give you a route to leadership. I think another thing is the kind of things that we've been talking about, respecting people for who they are, giving them opportunities, recognizing and appreciating initiative and imagination. And this is an old-fashioned one, really people who work hard and work extra hours and things like that. All those things, if they see you demonstrating those things as in your job, you're going to get picked as someone who could be a leader.
The nature of the universe is expansion and contraction. We breathe in, we breathe out. That's the way things work. And I've noticed that it works that way too in a career. Do you have any advice about how to navigate the times in your career when it's contracting?
It's easier to both be a contributing employee and a leader in times when opportunity is great and success is real and evident. It's harder when they're not and you have to make decisions. I always got to either, in both cases, what is the core mission and performance requirements of the group and of myself. And if opportunity seemed to shrink for me at a time, I would say, okay, I have ambition to move to this. It's not available. What do I do well in my current position, and how can I expand my influence just where I am? You can't let it crush your spirit. There are times I've been on programs that have been canceled. Well, you could really, and that's, you have to go home and you get an hour to wind. And then you say, okay, who am I? What do I do well? What do I do next? what have I learned from this experience? You can't get bitter and angry. As I say, you can do that. You can do that on your walk to the cab, and by the time you sit down in the cab, done with that, because it's just going to retard your progress, and you can't let that happen.
Thank you very much, David Corvo. This is the Joy of Leadership podcast on KMozart, brought to you by Cobblestone Wine. I'm Shar McBee.